So, our guest speaker today, David George Brooke, the Brooker, that gratitude guy, is a one-man crusade to convince each and every one of us that embracing gratitude and using a daily gratitude journal can and will transform your life. As the author of the Brooker's Daily Gratitude Journal and a co-author of the Amazon International bestseller, Ready, Aim, Captivate, David will show us the transformation power of gratitude, which creates a very healthy coping mechanism in a world of so many destructive ones. With over 250 gratitude videos on YouTube, over 30,000 people have seen his message. So please, everyone, welcome Brooker, that gratitude guy.
Thank you, Brenna. We are going to need a pen for later on, so I have some extra pens, so I have a little exercise we're going to do. So don't worry, it's not standing up and telling your life story or anything that's going to put a lot of pressure on anybody. But let me start with September 29th, 1998. It was a Tuesday. It was about 6 in the morning. I woke up and I looked over in bed and I couldn't find my wife. Now that's strange. And so I got up, and just as I got up, Connor, my 4-year-old, comes running into the room and he goes, "Where's Mom?" I go, "I don't know." So then we walk down the hallway and here comes Kyle. Kyle's 14. So we can't find her. We look in a couple of the rooms and then we finally look downstairs and I see her in front of the washer and the dryer face down. And she's kind of curled up, and I go running down there, something's obviously wrong, and I flip her over, and all this stuff's coming out of her mouth and so forth, and Connor starts crying, and Kyle, I said, "Go get medic 1, go get the fire department, go get the police, what have you," and within a minute, 5 or 10 minutes, the house has probably got 15 or 20 people swarming, and they have her out in the rec room. And this is so surreal, even though this has been a number of years now. It's like it was 5 minutes ago, and there's the wires and the tubes and those paddles and the shock stuff and all this kind of thing. And any group I speak to, from 20 to 2,000, I always know there's a general high percentage of somebody who's been through something like this in their life. And one of the things that I noticed, which I'll never forget, is how time loses all measure. And so I didn't know how much time had passed, and this little short fire person lady comes over to me and she goes, "Mr. Brooke, we've been working on your wife for an hour and a half and we still don't have a heartbeat. Would you like us to continue?" And even in a state of shock, I sat there, and shock when your whole body is numb and you're not sure if it's a dream or if it's a nightmare or if it's actually reality. I'd never before in my life had to make a life and death decision for anybody. And I said, "No, you could stop," and she was dead. And from that moment forward, what changed my life so much is not only was my wife gone, but my boys, 14 and 4, Kyle 14, Connor 4, had no mother. But what had changed my life is this was only one of about a dozen extremely traumatic, tragic things that had happened to me. And I had lost my father. He was a very prominent attorney in Seattle. And he chose one day to put a shotgun in his mouth and kill himself, a concept I've never understood. My mother had died of cancer. 2 of my best buddies died the night we graduated from Queen Anne High School in Seattle. A number of other friends were lost in Vietnam. My doctor, a couple of women I had dated when I was single for a while. And it just went on. I made a list, and it was about 20 some odd people, 20, 25 people, in a very, 10-year period. And I remember thinking 2 or 3 days after Dana died, and again, I'll guarantee you there's people in this room that have gone through this when you go through shock. And I walked up to the deck that kind of looked out on the backyard, and it was a couple, 3 days later. And really for the first time, and I hope the last time in my life, I looked out at the sky and realized now I understand why people kill themselves. Because we're just this little flesh and bone and skin and all this kind of thing that makes us up, muscle and what have you. And I don't know if we're designed to kind of take this kind of trauma. Connor couldn't stop crying, "Where's my mom?" And it's very, very tough. And so when you combine that with the fact that there were so many other people, and the fact that those people, half of them had some hand in their death. It wasn't like they got hit by a bus or in a tragic accident of some sort. It was pills, it was drinking, it was suicide, it was all these different things where people were taking their own life. So along the way, I was going to have to find something because I didn't think I was going to make it. And I found gratitude, and I think that I look at not only loss, depression, stress, the pressures of life. Nobody tells you when you grow up, this is how it's going to be. Life is like this. This is a lot of fun. This is not fun. This is where the lessons are, though, and this is where you're going to learn them. And so I realized that it was going to be how I looked at it. And fortunately, this buddy of mine one day says to me, you should get a gratitude journal. And I go, what's that? And I really didn't know what it was. And so I found one and I ordered it. And like a lot of people, I just got it from Amazon, just put it on the shelf and didn't touch it for 3 months. Until one day I thought I better make an effort at this because I was not doing well. So what I'd like to first do, I'm only going to do 2 exercises. One's going to require a pen. But the first thing I'd like to do is, to me, it all depends on how you look at this. Now, we have a group of people, and again, I speak from small to large, but there's always the percentages. There's the positive ones, there's the negative ones, and then there's everybody in between on the bell curve. So the first thing I'd like you to do is all stand up, because I think it's so important to figure how we look at something. So I'd like you to just point, it's a good stretching exercise, still early. I'd just like you to point to the ceiling and start rotating your hand in a clockwise direction. Now, if anybody doesn't know a clockwise direction, I will show you my watch. And so it's this way, okay? So don't get confused because I'm going. So it's clockwise, right? So feel that nice stretch. See, nobody knew you're going to get some exercise. Okay, now start slowly, still going clockwise, right? Start slowly bringing it down. Keep it going. Got to bend your elbow a little bit. Keep it at about your eye level. Now your chin. Now bring it down to your waist. Now what direction is it going? Oh my goodness. I think it's going counterclockwise. All right, you may sit down. And somebody came up to me after a talk, and that wasn't so tricky. I get it. You know, you're looking up here, you're looking down there, what's the big deal? I go, it just depends on how you look at it. But see, what happened is that we have this choice. Brenda mentioned these videos. I do all these videos. I already did one this morning. I loaded it on the YouTube this morning at the hotel room. But it's all about your viewpoint. And this father I had was so negative, and as I say, unfortunately, he killed himself. I'd say, good morning. He'd go, what's good about it? And this is the father. There's 5 of us. And I don't understand how but so you have that choice. You get up, you walk down the road, you can go left or right. Yeah, I suppose there's roads you can go straight, but a lot of times there's a T, and you got to choose. And so I decided at some point, I'm going to choose to survive, and I got to raise these 2 boys. And all these other things that had happened, I thought, you know what? I'm going to have to figure out, this may not be done overnight. And it's going to take as long as it takes. And one of the things I'll tell you right now what I talk about, I always talk about 5 things. First thing is embracing gratitude. Second thing is understanding it takes as long as it takes. You just can't give up on anything. The third thing is you got to clean out your brain, which is where the red paper is going to come in. Fourth thing is the gratitude journal. And the last thing is sharing gratitude. Because once you've got it, you got to share it. And as I'll say later, one of the things I found out, the best way for me to help myself was to help others. And that's how you can really create a journey back to not waking up every day like you think it's the end of your life. Because it was very devastating. I'm a pretty tough cookie, and I've seen so many people that didn't survive. And I thought, I'm going to have to get some tools. I'm going to share this with people. So, but when you hear these stories, 300 banks turned down Sylvester Stallone for Rocky, and another 200 or 300 turned down Walt Disney for Disneyland. And people just keep trying and to keep doing it. And if anybody ever saw the Steve Jobs, anybody see the Steve Jobs commencement speech from Stanford, 2005? A few? It's 14 minutes long. It's very well worth seeing. I read it initially, then I saw it on YouTube. It's 5 minutes on growing up, 5 minutes on Apple, and 5 minutes on his cancer, which unfortunately he succumbed to later. But in the middle of 5 minutes, he talks about how it was the worst day of his life. He got fired from Apple. And he started the company. And he flashes forward later to when he got brought back to Apple and made it the most valuable company in the world, or one of the most right now. And he says that became the best day of his life, the day he got fired. So there's your perspective. And his comment that I loved was, you can connect the dots backwards, but you cannot connect them forwards. So we can't go forward and look back to this day. But on April 3rd, 2013, there may be something that happens later on. You can look back and say, now I see why I had that conversation with that person. Now that's why that thing David said at Rotary. You never know, but that's how it works. But you can't look forward. And I had so many examples in my life. I have many. I do longer workshops and different things where we're really drilling down into gratitude. But I'll just tell you one story. It had to do with Connor. And I really realized you just can't give up. And it's so many of these talks, there's always people that this hits home, and it's very emotional, and there's different things that have happened to them. They're very similar to mine. And in many cases when it involves children, whether it's your spouse or children, you understand why so many people advocate for children. Tom was talking about the cleanup on Spring Street and helping the community, all these things. All those things are phenomenal. But you look at people that advocate for children and animals, where people that are really defenseless. We can at least defend for ourselves for the most part. So you see why so many people do this. So here's Connor. He's 5 years old. His mom has died 6 months ago, a year ago. I'm still not making it very well. We go to the kindergarten place. She says, your son's all messed up. He's got all sorts of problems. No kidding. His mom just died 6 months ago. I'm still having a difficult time just getting up every day. Well, we got some real problems. We need to put him through a battery of tests. So they put Connor and I go in. They put him through all these tests and everything. And they said, oh, he's got fine motor, gross motor. All these things are all messed up. Nothing's working right here. He's going to need occupational therapy. He's going to need this, and that. Kyle wasn't doing much better at 14, almost 15. And so I put him in, and then I held him back in first grade. But before that session ended, they brought me in, and I was an emotional wreck too. They've been asking me questions all day long. I was really questioning if I should have even done this. But I got to do what's best for my kids. So at the end of the thing, she says, well, you better get him on the right track. He's going to have a problem. And I just wasn't liking what I was hearing, but I had to be the best dad I could be. So we lived near Green Lake, and the high school there was Roosevelt. And I said, well, let me just tell you something. I was a pretty good athlete. He's going to be the quarterback at Roosevelt High School someday. And she goes, just like this. No. He's never going to play sports. He's never going to amount to anything. And to this day, a lot of people come up and say, did you get her name? and I'm the gratitude guy. I can't be cynical and sarcastic most of the time. And but I kind of wish I had. Because I walked out of there, I got in the car, we drive home, I burst into tears. I can't stop crying for 5 or 10 minutes. Connor keeps going, Daddy, what's wrong? It gets me upset just thinking about it. And I said, it's okay, Con. But we hung in there. And so I told Connor, listen, you're going to try everything. And we talked about sports and the gross motor and the fine motor. And he couldn't play. Couldn't hit, couldn't run, couldn't catch, couldn't throw, couldn't do anything. And we stuck with it. And when we'd be T-balling, for those of you that are parents, you know this. The ball just sits on the tee. How do you miss that? And he'd hit over it, and then he'd hit the tee, and it'd fall off. I got to hit, Dad. No, Dad, you hit the tee. It wasn't the ball. But we hung in there. And I thought, if I do anything in this world, both these boys are going to have a great dad who's going to stick with them forever. And that's where this gratitude came in, because I was so unbelievably grateful to be a father. It's the best role I've managed Lowe's and Nordstrom's and all these big fancy business in there. I don't care. The best role I'm ever going to be is daddy, which Connor still calls me occasionally. He's almost 19. So he stuck with it. We get to May 31st, 2005. It's a Little League game, and it's 7-6, the other team, and it's the bottom of the 7th. And there's 2 out, and there's 2 guys on base, and guess who comes up to bat? Now, for those of you that are spiritually inclined, I think something God goes, don't just pray to me on the days you need me, okay? But I kind of went, can we get a walk? Just hit by a pitch. Just anything. Ball 1, strike 1, ball, he's missing. Ball 2, strike, full count. 7-6, 2 on base. Next pitch, he rips down the third baseline. Just goes inside the bag, goes into left field. The guy from third comes in to score. The guy from second comes around. Here it comes. Here's the guy from third. Now at third, coming in home, and here's the ball. They crash together. He catches the ball. He hits home base. It looks like he's out. The guy drops the ball. They went 8-7. Connor's on second base. I've told this story so much, I still cannot get through it without choking up. The entire team comes out, carries him off the field on their shoulders. And he used to go into the dugout and just cry, put his face in the corner and just cry. And I couldn't do anything. Again, as a parent, I can't go down there and help. That would look ridiculous in front of his friends. But we got home that night and we sat down, and I'd had a lump in my throat for an hour or two. And I realized that you got to stick with it. It doesn't matter what it is. Now, there's some terrible tragedies. I'll guarantee you there's tragedies in this room as well. I've had many, many more than my share. But you have to stick with it. And the vehicle that I found that worked was gratitude. In this gratitude journal, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I said to Connor that night, we sat down on the bed, and it seems like 5 minutes ago. I said, you know what, it was never, ever about baseball. It's about the fact you never gave up. And I held him back, and so he's now a senior in Bothell High School. And he's a starting pitcher on the team. After all this, and just a phenomenal athlete. He's taller than I am now, he's 6'2", and once or twice a week, he still says, good night, Daddy, and still slips, and he's this strapping 19-year-old young man. So the thing that I realize is that, and I'll guarantee again, you all have stories. I'm just one of the people that happens to stand up here and tell them, but about not giving up. And we all give up so easily. And that's why, and ultimately with Dana, she had died of a prescription pill overdose. She got hooked on Vicodin and OxyContin. She had 50 Vicodin in her stomach. And beautiful gal, she's 38 years old. And I will never understand it. Who was I talking to? Was it Frank? Who were we talking about coffee? We were standing back there. Jonathan. And I said, that's, Jonathan goes, that's the vice. I go, you're right. This isn't bad compared to the other stuff, compared to the alternative. I'll take coffee. I have like 3 lattes a day. I'm like, yesterday, where's the Starbucks? You know? It's like, there's no Starbucks here? There's one inside somewhere? There's some from Seattle. But we need coping mechanisms. So many of them are negative, though. So many of them are destructive. So many are deadly. That's what killed Dana. It was a coping mechanism, and she'd gotten hooked on that. So the next step is, in order to allow gratitude into your brain, you got to clear out your brain, okay? So before we get to our little exercise, you'll see the red paper. That's going to involve that. So you're going to all need a piece of red paper, and you're going to need a pen. And I've got plenty of pens here, as I mentioned. So get ready for that, but let me just tell you why we're going to do this little exercise. When you talk to people that say, I need to change my life, things are, anybody doesn't have a piece of paper or pen, please let me know. I've got extra paper, and I hopefully have a few pens. And this is something I've noticed, is people will tell me all the time, listen, Brooker, I need to do this, this, and that. And I'll tell 20 people, and this is how many people will do it. And I don't understand that. So before Dana had passed away, she'd gone into addiction recovery. She'd gotten arrested for prescription fraud. Again, I don't know all your backgrounds. I've never seen anybody like this before with their handcuffs. It was just horrifying to go into the police station. She'd stolen the little pads and scribbled the thing to make the prescription. And so she's in recovery 3 different times for 2 or 3 weeks. So I go in to see this doctor, and he says, are you David Brooker? Are you Dana's husband? Please come in, sit down. Your wife's not doing well. I said, she looks fine. She said, no, she's not doing well. Let me tell you something. Look out in that room. See that? 40 or 50 people are out there. They all have some sort of problem. She goes, but let me tell you, I've been doing this as Dr. Dickinson for 35 years. I will tell you what the odds are. One of those people will come back and have a normal life. And of the 19 that don't, half of them will be dead in a year. And she was dead about a year later. I never would have believed it, ever. Our first date was running Green Lake. She was tall and thin. It wasn't out getting some cocktail or something, very athletic and so forth. So it can happen to anybody. And I think that the 1 in 20, it hit me so much because I was saying to Gretchen, I try to get as many people's names as I can, the Jonathans, the Franks, the Toms, so I can connect with people as quickly as I can to say, you can be that one. But how many people are the 1 and how many are the 19? And each one of you has to look in there and answer that, whether it's accepting gratitude, whatever it is in your life, if you want to change. I've said for years, it seems so obvious. If you want to change your life, change your life. It's pretty simple. Just change it. So I had this young lady working for me. I'd left Nordstrom, started my own business, and she was, her name was Tracy, and it was an auto detail shop, and I was going to build it into a big chain, and we'd gotten real busy and hired a lot of people, and it was my dream, instead of working for the Nordstrom family. And this gal comes up to me, and she was, I think she'd had kind of a tough life. And I think maybe she'd been abused possibly, and maybe worked in some of those exotic dance places. I don't know, I could tell something wasn't quite right. Cute gal, maybe in her early 20s. But she said, I've been preaching this for a long time. She goes, I'm going to be the one. People said to me a lot, I'm going to be the one. You watch, I won't be one of those 19 like in that audience you spoke to the other day. I'll be the one. And I encourage it. I want as many people to be the one, the person that writes in that gratitude journal, the person that changes their life today. It can happen. You don't have to go down that road like my dad did. You don't have to. So she kept saying all the time, I'm going to be, and then she gets pregnant. And she goes, well, I'm going to have the baby. Tracy. She goes, no, I'm going to be the one. You just watch. I promise you. I will be somebody you'll be talking about someday. So she says, I'm going to move to Texas to be with my mom. So she moves down to Texas to be with her mom. And she says, I'll keep you posted. So about a year later, I've forgotten about her. And I get this call one day, and Dave, it's Tracy from Texas. And she doesn't want to let you know I changed my life, just like I'm the one. Just like you said. And she says, let me give you an update. I said, great. She goes, I had my baby. Good. What's his name? I think it was John or Johnny or something. I go, fantastic. And she goes, I completely turned everything around. And you're my inspiration. And I was just thrilled. She goes, I even have a new man in my life. Really, what's his name? Robert. So what's Robert do? Well, he's on work release right now. I can still remember, it wasn't a cell phone then, shows my age. Just looking at the phone going, I couldn't believe what I just heard. So, I did what I always try to do. I said, you know what? all right, Tracy, you're doing well. Let's keep in touch. And she did, and I think he's back in jail. But anyway, just think about that, which now leads me to my exercise. So here's what we have to do. So you have a piece of red paper. You got a pen. So one of the things we have to do, I got to get speedy here, is that if green means go, what does red typically mean? Very good. Thank you very much. Audience participation. Tremendous. Well, this is something that we're going to do because I want you to stop doing something. And I'm going to tell you the reason this paper is red is because when you write on it, your neighbor cannot see what you write. If you notice on red paper. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write, and you got to think these prior. You only got 2 minutes to write every mess up you've done in your life that you're not happy about, that you're completely pissed, if I may use. Every screw up, start with the biggest ones, just between you, yourself, and I want you to write them down as fast as you can, and you got 2 minutes. Okay, now a lot of people say I need a lot longer. I needed like an hour, but that shows you my life. So I'm going to time you, and as many misjudgments, bad karma, you name it, and go right now, and then I'll let you know when 2 minutes is up. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, 20 seconds. Okay, stop. Okay, so my favorite people, I do this for all size audience, everything, and the people who write one thing and stop. I just want to meet them, have a cup of coffee, and see how I can be like that. Mine, I could use an hour on mine. And it's just ridiculous how many mess-ups I've made in my life, how many poor judgments, but I learned from them, and I got a lot better. And when you all, if most of you came in a car, when you go out and get in that car today, notice the size of the windshield. It's about 2 feet deep, and it's about 4 or 5 feet wide. And then notice how big the rear view mirror is. It's about 1 inch or 2, and it's about high and about 4 or 5 inches. So that should be the way you look at your life. Most of it's in front. Pay attention to what's behind you, the blue lights or whatever it might be. Learn from it, some of these things. But don't let it get in your way. It's junk. It's absolute junk. So this is what I like to do, and Brenna's going to be my judge. You now have 1 minute to put this garbage where it belongs, and I have a little book for the person that can rip that up into the most number of pieces in 1 minute, so you can start right now. Brenna will be the judge. Most number of pieces wins, because that's, now I can put these back together as I've been known to do. Just kidding. It's like 8:52. So if I go at 9, is that okay?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
4 more minutes, because we have to get out of here for something whenever you guys
Okay, okay. Okay, 10 seconds. Look at Carol. Look at Carol over there. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. Okay, Brenna, go tell me who got the most pieces.
Mike is adding his married.
You got my book, Thomas.
I'd say Carol.
Yeah, I kind of see Carol looks like from here, so I believe that was Carol Lindy, if I'm not mistaken. So 50 gratitude nuggets. A little applause for Carol. Good job.
Pretty close was Thomas.
I know. I'm going to get Thomas. I'm going to get you one too because yours is very close. I have a little gratitude nugget. So I love to do that exercise. It's very therapeutic. I've done it many, many times myself. I'm going to run through because I've got to wrap up in about 5 minutes. But what I'd like you to do is I always like to give away a couple of books. So while I'm doing this, will you grab any business cards you had and pull them out? And I'm going to do a real quick drawing for a couple of books I have, which including the Gratitude Journal, which is this. And if you don't have a card, you can use one of mine, and please keep my cards, because the biggest reason I like to keep my cards, if you know anybody else that wants a speaker, I get so many great referrals through Rotary and Kiwanis and Lions and Chambers where I do a lot of the talk. So I always appreciate that. In fact, I always send a card that says I'm grateful, big surprise, and for any referral, because I've met some of the most incredible people. So while you're getting that ready, let me just do kind of talk about this at the same time. This is the Gratitude Journal, and the thing that makes this unique is I created a structure on this. Takes 7.5 minutes a day. That's all it takes. It's less than 8-minute abs for those that do that. And it isn't just something that just says, you just write in up at the top. It's got your day, date, and your daily number. 10 is the best day of your life, 1 is the worst day. And that's how you anchor how you're doing on that day, and you can go back and track it and see. It's very simple. The current event, special occasion, just a line or two on what you're doing, so you don't have to have a diary too. And then this is everything you're grateful for today, and then down at the bottom is the highlight of your day. And then I've got a little quote down here that always relates to gratitude. Many times, sometimes 2 and 3 times a week, my highlight of the day is Connor saying "Good night, Daddy," because he does that so much, which I just love. And on the right-hand side, very, very powerful, is the gratitude intentions. And what that is your subconscious mind does not know the difference between what actually happens, what you think happens. And as a result of that, if you program it, I'm so grateful for the tremendous people I met at Rotary tomorrow. It already programs your brain. And so anything you want to have happen in the future, and I have tons of examples, and unfortunately I don't have much time today to tell you that have happened to me that just give me the chills. One quick one. I'd changed this job with this gal who was running this fancy thing, and I kept writing every day, I'm so grateful for the job I'll have before the end of the year. And I think this was 2008. Anyway, they got the job offer. Lowe's called me on December 30th. Said, we want you to run the Mount Vernon store. So, and I've got just tons of them. But it's amazing how you can program this brain. It doesn't have to be this way. This is one of the biggest things I tell people. Well, you don't understand, Dave. Yes, I actually do understand. I've been through a lot of junk, and that's why I tell people about it. It's not to be so sad for me, but it's how you can bounce back from these types of things. So the Gratitude Journal is really, really big, and it's really important. So I have 2 books. I have the Gratitude Journal, and I have another one I did called Happiness Starts with Gratitude, and it's 50 gratitude lessons to direct, inspire, and empower you. So let me just do that quick drawing, and then we'll wrap up here so I don't get real late. And thank you very much. Who's that? Oh,
It's Barbara Fagan.
where's Barbara? Barbara, book or journal? You get the choice. Okay, thank you, Barbara. All right, and the second one, thank you. I'll get this because and who's that? WH?
Bill.
Bill. Hi, Bill.
Bill.
And I'll be happy to sign those for you, too. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right, so last thing, because I've got to wrap up. When I think about gratitude, I mentioned very briefly sharing it. I'm going to tell you one quick story, I'll be done. I always go late because I get really passionate about this. So I've flown a lot. I was telling somebody earlier, I used to fly up to Friday and Roach a lot and flew out of Boeing Field. And I haven't flown as much lately. I came up on the ferry last night. But in flying, there was all sorts of experiences I had that, believe it or not, related to gratitude and things that happened. So I was down at Ocean Shores one day, and I got caught between cloud layers, and you're not supposed to be there. I was a VFR pilot in IFR conditions. And so the cloud layers were like this, and I got to get out of here. And all of a sudden, the sun came in. It was kind of near ocean shores in the water, and it hit the 2 layers of cloud, and it was like this kaleidoscope of color. And it just was like something out of 2001, that movie, where it's in there was a big thing with color. And I just grabbed onto the yoke, and my hands were frozen. I couldn't even move. My eyes were like this. It just literally froze me, because I thought I was in some sort of hallucinogenic dream or something. And I went, oh my God. And I just was like this, and it was just like bam, 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 bam. And it probably was 30 or 45 seconds. It felt like 2 or 3 minutes. Just as soon as it came in, I popped out of the clouds. And I went, oh my gosh, I was that. And I went, and I looked to my right and went, wasn't that the coolest thing you've like ever seen in your entire life? My God. And I realized I was flying by myself. So nobody ever got to see that. I never got to share that with anyone. We could never relate to it again. But the biggest thing I've learned is every time I do these talks, there's always somebody, in many cases a lot of people. What you said really impacted me. This changed my life. This helped me. I feel gratitude saved my life. I don't think I'd be here without gratitude. I really don't. And writing this gratitude journal is so huge, but sharing it is even bigger. And I just believe it can change your life. It saved mine, and it can change yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. And then with our gratitude of being here today, we have a thank you pen for your
Oh, thank you.
gratitude.
Thank you.
So, and then also,